They say every scam begins with trust. I never understood the weight of that truth until the day I met Adrian. It was during an online business seminar. One of those webinars that promised to teach financial strategies for the future. I wasn't even planning to attend. I had clicked the link on impulse, tired after work, sipping on my evening tea. That's when he appeared on my screen, confident, articulate, the kind of man who carried an aura of certainty. He spoke about cryptocurrency like a preacher delivering a sermon. His words painted vivid pictures of financial freedom, families paying off debts, people retiring early, ordinary individuals becoming millionaires overnight. I wasn't naive. I had heard countless get-rich-quick pitches before. But this time, something felt different. Adrian didn't sound desperate or pushy. He sounded like someone who already had everything and was simply sharing his knowledge with those wise enough to listen. After the seminar, I received a message from him. It was personal, warm, as if I had caught his special attention out of the hundreds who attended. "You ask smart questions," he wrote. "You're not like everyone else. I can help you build real wealth if you're serious." That was the spark. We began exchanging emails. Soon, we were on late-night video calls. Adrian had a way of making me feel like I was in control, when in truth, he was weaving his net around me. He explained blockchain technology, how crypto was decentralized, how governments couldn't touch it. He even showed me his trading screens, numbers climbing higher and higher, profits rolling in by the minute. What sealed my trust wasn't just the money. It was his patience. He never asked me to invest right away. Instead, he listened to me talk about my life, my goals, my fears. He told me I was smart enough to see opportunities that others overlooked. And slowly I began to believe him. The first time I invested, it was only $5,000. A test. Within weeks, my account balance showed $10,000. Adrian congratulated me like a proud mentor, reminding me how few people doubled their money so quickly. I felt lucky chosen. Looking back, that was the moment the trap snapped shut. I didn't know it then, but the balance I was watching grow on my dashboard wasn't real. The profits were nothing more than lines of code designed to keep me hooked. And Adrian wasn't my mentor. He was my predator. But in that moment, sitting in front of my laptop, heart pounding with excitement, I thought I had just unlocked the future. I thought I had finally found someone who wanted me to win. The first $5,000 was just the beginning. I watched the numbers on my screen climb steadily. And with each increase, my faith in Adrian grew stronger. He congratulated me at every milestone, his voice brimming with warmth and certainty. "You see?" he told me one evening. "You have the instincts of a true investor. This is only the start. Imagine what happens when you scale up." And I did imagine. I imagined myself debt-free. Imagined sending money to my parents without worrying about the bills. I imagined traveling, buying the dream home I had only ever seen in magazines. It felt like someone had opened a door into the life I'd always wanted. And Adrian was the one holding it open for me. Soon I put in more, $20,000, then $50,000. Each time, the returns doubled on the screen. My account balance glowed like a beacon of hope. $120,000, $260,000, $500,000. I checked it every morning like a ritual. My heart would race when I logged in, and I'd smile to myself as if I had a secret the world didn't know. Adrian became more than a business partner. He became a confidant. We spoke almost every day. He'd ask about my stress at work, about my health, about my dreams. He told me about his struggles before he found crypto, how he had once been broke, laughed at, doubted by everyone, until he proved them wrong. "Now," he said, "I help people like you do the same." He knew exactly what to say. One night, I remember sitting on the balcony under the stars, phone pressed to my ear, listening to him describe how my investment could hit millions within months. His words were intoxicating. I closed my eyes and saw myself walking away from the grind of 9-to-5 life. I saw freedom. That's when I made the biggest leap of my life. I sold one of my properties. It was painful. That house carried years of memories, but I told myself it was an investment in my future. I wired Adrian over $1 million. He didn't celebrate recklessly. That's what made him convincing. Instead, he said softly, "I'm proud of you. This is courage most people never find. You'll thank yourself for this." The following weeks were a blur of happiness. My account balance showed more money than I had ever dreamed of. 10 million, 15 million, 20. I remember staring at the screen in disbelief, tears streaming down my face. For the first time in years, I felt unstoppable. I was no longer the woman struggling to make ends meet. No longer the one who had to count every penny. I was finally winning. At least, that's what I thought. What I didn't know was that I wasn't winning at all. I was being fattened for the slaughter. And when the day came when I tried to taste the reward of all my sacrifices, the dream shattered. That moment was still ahead. For now, I was drunk on hope. For months, everything felt perfect. My account balance grew so quickly it was almost laughable. Friends noticed I was different, lighter, happier, almost glowing with confidence. I didn't tell them everything, of course. I wanted the surprise to be bigger when the millions were finally in my hands. But then, small cracks began to appear. It started the first time I tried to withdraw a little money. Just $50,000. Nothing compared to what was sitting in my account. I wanted to test the waters, pay off a few debts, and celebrate with something tangible. The request was denied. I got an automated message. Transaction delayed due to system maintenance. Please try again later. I shrugged it off at first. Systems glitch. Websites crash. I didn't panic. But when later became days, then weeks, I began to worry. I reached out to Adrian. His tone was reassuring. That there was something different. Less warmth, more professionalism. "Don't worry," he said. "The exchange is upgrading their servers. It happens when trading volume is this high. If anything, it's proof of how hot the market is. Be patient. The bigger withdrawals will be processed soon." His explanation made sense. But his voice didn't. I told myself I was imagining it. After all, hadn't Adrian been with me from the very beginning? Hadn't he guided me through every decision? Why would he lie now? Still, unease began to creep in. One night, I logged into my account and noticed the dashboard looked slightly different. The colors, the fonts, the layout, subtle changes, but enough to unsettle me. When I asked Adrian, he brushed it off as a software update. Then came the verification requests. Suddenly, I was asked to upload more documents. Proof of funds, ID scans, even a utility bill. "It's for your protection," Adrian explained. "Large accounts trigger more compliance checks. This means you're in the big league now." I complied, though my stomach knotted with dread. Something didn't feel right anymore. The worst moment came when I received an email claiming I owed taxes before any withdrawals could be released. Not just a few thousand millions. The email looked official, stamped with logos, written in legal jargon. Adrian called almost immediately after I opened it. His tone was serious, urgent. "Don't panic," he said. "This is standard procedure. The government requires tax clearance on profits before you can access them. Once you pay, your funds are free. I've done this myself. It's nothing unusual." That was the first time my heart truly sank. Taxes? Before receiving the money? It didn't sound right, but I wanted so badly to believe. For the first time since meeting Adrian, doubt gnawed at me. Late at night, I would lie awake replaying everything in my head. His words, the reports, the dashboard numbers. Something didn't add up. Yet every time I thought of walking away, I would glance at the numbers glowing on my screen. Millions upon millions. And that hope kept me hooked. I didn't know it then. But the real nightmare was only beginning. The morning it all collapsed, I woke with a heaviness I couldn't explain. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was just exhaustion from weeks of waiting. But something inside me whispered, "Today will change everything." I logged into my account as usual. My balance still showed millions, but the dashboard loaded slower than normal. Then suddenly, the screen went blank. My heart skipped a beat. I refreshed the page, typed in my login again, but this time, an error message appeared. User not found. Panic surged through me. I tried again and again, fingers trembling, heart racing. But each attempt brought the same cold message. My account had vanished as if it never existed. Frantic, I dialed Adrian. He didn't answer. I called again and again, but all I got was voicemail. My messages went unread. By evening, his number was disconnected. His email bounced back as undeliverable. It felt like the floor had been ripped from beneath me. I spent the next few days in denial. I convinced myself it was a technical glitch, that Adrian would reach out, that the company was just fixing their systems. I barely ate, barely slept. Every second was consumed by desperate attempts to log in, by frantic online searches for the platform's customer support. But there was nothing. No company. No platform. Just a carefully designed facade that had disappeared the moment I tried to claim what was mine. The truth hit me like a truck. I had been scammed. Every penny gone. The house I sold, the savings I worked years for, the sleepless nights and sacrifices all stolen. My chest tightened until I could hardly breathe. I dropped to the floor, clutching my head, rocking back and forth as sobs tore through me. The screen in front of me, once a symbol of hope, now looked like a cruel joke. I thought of calling the police, but deep down I knew what they'd say. Cryptocurrency scams were almost impossible to trace. The criminals lived across oceans, hidden behind fake names, fake companies, fake everything. My millions weren't just gone, they were gone forever. The shame was unbearable. I couldn't tell my family, couldn't tell my friends. How could I admit I had been so blind, so reckless? I had walked straight into the trap and handed over everything with my own hands. Days turned into weeks. The silence from Adrian was louder than any words he had ever spoken. I replayed our conversations in my head, trying to spot the lies I had ignored. His warmth, his mentorship, his stories of struggle and triumph, all carefully crafted bait. And I had swallowed it whole. That was the fall. The moment I went from being a millionaire investor to a broken woman staring at an empty bank account and a life in ruins. But as devastating as it was, that wasn't the end of my story. Because after the fall comes the reckoning. The days after the fall blurred into one another. I stopped counting time by calendars or clocks. Instead, I measured it by the weight in my chest. Morning came with dread, night with despair. I was trapped in an endless loop of what-ifs. What if I hadn't trusted Adrian? What if I had withdrawn earlier? What if I had listened to the small voice in my head that whispered something wasn't right? That there were no answers, only silence. Bills still arrived. My mortgage, my utilities, my credit cards. They didn't care about my broken dreams. With the house gone and savings drained, I was forced to dip into every last reserve just to keep afloat. I sold jewelry, furniture, even family heirlooms. Each item I let go of felt like another piece of me disappearing. The shame was heavier than the financial loss. My parents called, wondering why I sounded so distant. Friends invited me out, but I always found excuses. How could I explain that I wasn't the brilliant investor I once bragged about, but a woman who had been played like a fool? At work, I struggled to focus. Simple tasks felt like mountains. Colleagues noticed my red eyes, my distracted demeanor, but I brushed them off with forced smiles. Inside, I was screaming. Nights were the worst. That was when Adrian's voice haunted me. His reassurances, his laugh, the way he said, "I'm proud of you." I hated myself for missing him, even though I knew he had never been real. Just a mask worn by a thief. I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, reliving every moment, every choice, every transfer of money that I could never get back. The bitterness ate at me. I wasn't just grieving the loss of money. I was grieving the loss of trust. Trust in people. Trust in myself. I had believed in something beautiful, and it had destroyed me. But amidst the ashes, something inside me stirred. At first, it was just anger, raw, burning anger. I thought of Adrian living luxuriously somewhere, spending my money, laughing at how gullible I had been. The image made my blood boil. Slowly, that anger began to harden into resolve. I couldn't let this be the end. One night, staring at my empty bank account, I whispered to myself, "This is not how my story ends." My voice cracked, but the words gave me strength. I began searching online for forums, survivor groups, anyone who had gone through what I had. And I found them, hundreds of people, from all walks of life, who had fallen into similar traps. Their stories were different, but the pain was the same. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. The money was gone. The trust was shattered. But in that community of broken, angry, and grieving victims, I felt something I hadn't felt since before the scam. Hope. And with that flicker of hope, a new chapter of my life began. One fueled not by greed, but by vengeance. Hope is a fragile thing, but once it takes root, it grows stronger than fear. After weeks of despair, something shifted inside me. I was no longer content to sit in the ruins of my life. Adrian had stolen my money, my peace, my trust, but he would not steal my voice, nor my will to fight. The first step was knowledge. I devoured articles, forums, and documentaries about crypto scams. I learned how sophisticated these networks were. Entire teams working together, running fake platforms, creating fake identities, even fake testimonials. It wasn't just Adrian. It was an industry of lies. Realizing this made me feel less stupid. I wasn't the only one. I was one of thousands.commer. Still, I refused to remain a statistic. Through an online support group, I connected with a man named Lucas who had lost nearly $500,000 in a similar scam. Unlike most victims, Lucas hadn't stopped at grief. He was digging into blockchain ledgers, offshore accounts, company records. He told me something that lit a fire inside me. Money leaves a trail. Even in crypto, nothing disappears completely. Together, we began to trace the breadcrumbs. Long nights blurred into mornings as I scrolled through transaction IDs, following the path of my stolen funds as they bounced between anonymous wallets. It was tedious, maddening, but every step felt like taking power back. I also began writing. At first, it was just journaling to release the storm inside me. But soon, my words turned into something more. A warning. A story others could learn from. I started a blog, sharing my experience openly, bearing my shame and my pain. To my surprise, people listened. Survivors reached out. Reporters contacted me. My voice, once silenced by guilt, now carried weight. But this was bigger than awareness. I wanted accountability. Lucas and I gathered every piece of evidence we could. Screenshots, emails, phone records, transaction logs. We took them to a cybercrime division in our city. The officers were skeptical at first, but when they saw how organized our evidence was, they leaned in. "This could actually help us," one investigator said. "It wasn't a promise of justice, but it was a start." The fight didn't heal me overnight. Some nights, the grief still returned, pressing on my chest like a weight I couldn't escape. Some mornings, I still woke with regret. But now, regret wasn't the only thing I carried. I carried purpose. Adrian's voice no longer haunted me. Instead, I imagined mine haunting him in every article, every investigation, every survivor who found strength in my story. The reckoning wasn't about getting my millions back. It was about reclaiming myself, my dignity, my power, my future. And as I hit publish on Yet, another post warning strangers of the trap I fell into, I realized something profound. Adrian had won the battle, but I was determined to win the war.